Hi there. Good news. According to Deadline, there's new forward movement on another Game of Thrones prequel pitch, one that we had already heard of a few weeks ago. Nymeria and the 10,000 ships of the Rhoynar. This is a little confusing. They said development is moving forward. I checked, I asked around, I asked Elio, who co-writes stuff with Martin on Westeros.org. It's not moving forward into active development. It hasn't been greenlit into production, nor has a pilot been ordered to start filming or anything. It's things move through stages. At first there's pitches, then they hire actual writers to make a full script for a pilot or something. Then you make story bibles for like season 1, or you make a pilot, and then they decide to greenlight it. Goes through stages like that. This hasn't even been ordered to a pilot yet. What happened was it started out as a pitch, and they have formally ordered a pilot script and publicly announced who they've assigned to. I'm not sure if Martin pitched the idea and then they assigned a writer, or if this writer is the one who, with Martin's blessing, was pushing this pitch idea. I'm not really sure. So moving forward in development, it's not greenlit, it's not a pilot order yet. It's where the original burst of 5 pitches were back in summer of 2018. It's at that stage where we have commissioned a pilot script for this, and then we're going to judge the script based on how good it is, whether we film it or not. Still, this is good news. This is forward motion. I'm just not trying to oversell it. I hate it when people go, oh, they're going to make a second prequel. We don't know if they'll like the script for this. It might get canceled. The way The Long Night even filmed a pilot and then turned out to be really bad and they rejected it. So it's only the second prequel if it goes into active filming and airs. You have to drive a race car to be considered a race car driver. But it's another pitch that is moving forward. And maybe like tomorrow they could announce one of the other ones is also getting a script. But who is this writer they have assigned to it? Amanda Siegel. Now, I'm not sure if she would be the showrunner on the whole thing. I mean, based on the other ones, she probably would be. I don't think sometimes they just hire someone to write the pilot, then they leave to another project, which is possible. But okay, let's assume Amanda Siegel will be the showrunner on this. Background on her. She was co-executive producer on a lot of TV shows since 2006. She is an experienced TV writer. She was a co-executive producer on Person of Interest throughout its entire run, and personally wrote 12 episodes. She was also a producer for 10 episodes on The Good Wife, personally wrote 1 script, wrote 16 episodes of Without a Trace, 12 episodes on the 2010 Nikita show, so she has a lot of professional experience in there. Some will point out that since 2017, she has been attached to a few flops, but going through it, I don't really think we can blame her personally. That she's had a long career since 2006, and starting in 2017, she was attached to 2 pretty bad shows. That awful The Mist TV show that was a bad adaptation of the Stephen King thing. The movie's great, the TV show is awful. And Marvel's Hellstrom. Now, if you're going, what's Hellstrom? That's the point. They barely aired it. It had all sorts of internal problems. Both of these are things that only lasted 1 season. And I've seen some people already pointing out in comment sections, oh, she was attached to that terrible show. Well, both of those shows had 8 to 12 other executive producers on them. And she wasn't the showrunner on any of these. So it was a group project of 8 other people. How can we say definitively, oh, that was her fault? Particularly when she's had a very successful run on Person of Interest or The Good Wife, Without a Trace. So I'm leaning more towards that, but don't list her as Hellstrom's Amanda Siegel. That's something she worked on recently. It's a roll of the dice whenever you accept a contract to work on a show, that she's better known for earlier stuff. But, I was worried too, but then I was relieved when I heard what her current project is that hasn't come out yet. That more recently, for the past year or two, the thing she's been working on is an upcoming TV show adaptation of Ubisoft's Skull and Bones video game. They're making a Skull and Bones TV series. It's a story about female pirates in the golden age of piracy. So for a minute there, I was worried, Person of Interest is okay, but it's like a technology thing, and The Good Wife is a lawyer show. Like, how does this translate into Nymeria is this big, epic, ancient war with dragons, and then it's this refugee fleet like the Aeneid, sailing around the summer sea looking for a home and fighting monsters and getting into wars and stuff. And fleets and ships are a big part of it. She has been doing gaining a lot of experience working with ship stuff and writing and researching based on all the prep work she's been doing for this big pirate show pilot she's been working on. So that made me feel a lot better for the past 2 years I've been working on the pilot for this show about the golden age of piracy. That fits pretty well with a Nymeria show, particularly female pirates. Nymeria is the lead of this. She's the female leader of the Rhoynar. So overall, I think her background pretty much checks out, as much as anyone. We'll have to see what she actually does to judge it. But she looks okay. She's experienced, over 15 years experience. Now, like I said, we already heard about this pitch weeks ago, back in March. So I don't want to go over Nymeria into too much more detail again, use up too much more time. I'm going to link it in the description below. I already talked about the Nymeria show in more detail. And I also made a video montage of the 3 animated histories and lore videos where characters talk about Nymeria. It's 8 minutes long. It's like Oberyn explaining who Nymeria was, or Varys explaining the war they had with the Valyrians. So I edited that together into an 8-minute animated. This is background on, if you haven't read the books, this will prep you on what is the story of Nymeria and the Rhoynar and their 10,000 ships. That's also linked in the bottom there. I don't want to spend more time on that. Check out the earlier videos if you want more story detail. What I want to spend the rest of my time here doing is briefly going over, okay, what are all of the pitches currently in development? Because they had phase 1 of their pitches back in summer 2018. And then we heard about 2 new bursts of prequel pitches in early 2021. So what's going on here? And I see websites even saying, I'm confused how many pitches there are because people aren't reporting on it well. You're the one that's supposed to be reporting on this news site, not wondering, I wonder who's doing this. Quickly, what happened was, summer 2018, they had 5 pitches. And they're not formally ordered, it's just 5 different pitches. 3 of these advanced to the point that they had scripts and story bibles. The Long Night, which has since been canceled, Dance of the Dragons, which will be titled House of the Dragon, but it's the story of the Dance of the Dragons. And the third one, linguist David J. Peterson confirmed, was The Doom of Valyria. He said it back right after Long Night got canceled, but he's been making a new round of podcast interviews on the Game of Owns. He just made an appearance on at the beginning of their most recent podcast, and he admitted, again, the third idea was Doom of Valyria, and advanced to the point it had story bibles and stuff. And he also said the 4th and 5th pitches, whatever they were, never advanced to the script phase. That they died out in the pitch phase. Peterson said no one he works with on the other prequels had ever even heard of what these ideas were. But the fact that Martin said that his prequel anthology book, Fire and Blood, contained 2 out of the original 5 pitch ideas means we're pretty sure that the 4th idea was Targaryen Conquest, because there's really 2 stories in Fire and Blood. Targaryen Conquest and its aftermath, and the Dance of the Dragons and its aftermath. And we think they passed on Targaryen Conquest because it's too similar to the Dance of the Dragons, but the dance has more material in it. It's easier to follow because there's 2 sides. I do think that was the right choice, that you can't do both concurrently, that they're too similar. And we have no idea what the 5th pitch was. Maybe a young Tywin and the Rain Rebellion as one shot, or Blackfire Rebellion seems unlikely because they'd have to set it up first, because they never even mentioned it in the main show. Or, for all we know, it could have been one of the later pitches they recycled. Maybe it was Nymeria, and they passed on it, and later recycled it. I'll mention this later, that we don't really know if the 5th idea was later reworked. Similarly, Martin said, oh, there was a sixth and seventh idea that I pitched to HBO, but they rejected out of hand. That these were never even considered and writers weren't attached. I'm not really sure what those could be either. One of them might have been Dunk and Egg because Ryan Condal said, no, it couldn't have been. Ryan Condal, who is the showrunner in House of the Dragon now, it explained that originally, like 2016, when they were first discussing prequels, he came to Martin and suggested, I would like to do a Tales of Dunk and Egg prequel. And Martin didn't send this to HBO, and it got shut down. Martin himself shot it down. He nicely told Condal, I don't really want to make a Dunk and Egg project until the main novellas are finished. And there's currently 3 finished Dunk and Egg novellas out of a planned 12. And he said the 4th and 5th are near completion, but he's working on the next A Song of Ice and Fire novel. And you could do them as like one-shots, because there's time skips in Dunk and Egg that it's supposed to cover 50 years. You could just make the first 3 as TV movies and pick up again 10 years later when the next one is written. I don't know. But no, Dunk and Egg, Martin never sent it to HBO, so these weren't among the 5th, 6th, and 7th ideas that Martin said HBO didn't even want to consider. So it couldn't have been among the 5th, 6th, or 7th pitches. He said the 5th one they were considering, rejected it. The 6th and 7th I suggested to them, they rejected out of hand. But that was the first wave of pitches, the War of the 5 pitches. What happened in 2021? Like I said, for all I know, maybe Nymeria was the 5th pitch, or the 7th pitch, and they recycled it. And I tried working this out with charts, it ended in frustration. We will never know without further information when exactly Nymeria was first pitched. Was this the 5th idea? I don't think it was, because he said one of the 5 pitches was set outside of Westeros, and the 3rd one turned out to be Doom of Valyria, so it couldn't have been the 5th one. But it's possible Nymeria was the 6th or 7th idea that they said they rejected out of hand. Maybe. We'll never know, but there were 2 bursts of new pitch announcements in early 2021. The first one wasn't a formal announcement through a news site and later turned out to be very inaccurate. That, as I explained in the preceding video to this one, James Hibbard screwed up, and he misheard that when Martin said he wanted to make a Broadway stage play about the tourney at Harrenhal, which is the opening event of Robert's Rebellion, he misinterpreted that as they're going to make a Robert's Rebellion full-length TV show, which they're not. And he even screwed up. He thought Bruno Heller was attached to it. He's not. He's attached to a different idea. That in that burst, Hibbard said 3 things. He said Robert's Rebellion, Tales of Dunk and Egg, and an animated project. The fact that he was wrong about Robert's Rebellion throws all that into question. Maybe Martin would be willing to do other stuff with Dunk and Egg. Again, Condal wanted to do it. It'd be easy to do. It's lower budget because it's not on a big scale. It's a character piece. I'm not sure. The much more reliable announcement came out later in March. The second burst of announcements, another 3 ideas, came out through Deadline. And Deadline announced that they're considering Nymeria and the 10,000 Ships of the Rhoynar, the 9 Voyages of Corlys Velaryon with Bruno Heller attached, so it's live action, and a show on Flea Bottom. This is the most mysterious one, that Flea Bottom is the biggest slum district in King's Landing, and some people scoff at this, but I think, oh, are you doing like a young Daemon Targaryen show? That it's very possible that young Corlys and Flea Bottom are both meant to be tie-in shows to House of the Dragon. Not full-length, 10-episode, multi-year runs, but, tie-in shows to the main thing, supplements to them. That would make a lot of sense. Another idea I had is, Mysaria, who has been cast in House of the Dragon, Lady Misery, she started out as a slave and became a prostitute in Flea Bottom when Daemon was a young man there, and 20 years later, by the Dance of the Dragons, she basically runs the criminal underworld in Flea Bottom. She's a power broker, like Sharon in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. She's the power broker of the Flea Bottom underworld. So maybe a Flea Bottom show would be showing the rise of Mysaria as the power broker in their underworld. There's a couple ideas you could do that people are like, oh, how could they do a flea bottom show? I think it'd be a mistake if they did it as set during like the reign of King Robert and just an anthology of short story bits. That doesn't really make sense. That the smart thing would be to be setting that background up for House of the Dragon with these tie-in characters in the City Watch who come into the main show. I can see that working. I think, and just logically, I think these are both tie-in shows to that. At any rate, in my previous videos, at the time I said Nymeria and the 10,000 Ships has such a huge budget they need. There's a battle with 300 dragons in it at one point, when the Valyrians defeat the Rhoynar in the final climactic battle at Volantis. But the fact that they're hiring a mainstream drama writer, Amanda Siegel, to write the pilot for 10,000 Ships, I think I was wrong, that this is the big message I want you to take away from this video, is I used to say, Nymeria will assuredly be animated, and I thought the two separate reports were overlapping. Now I'm not so sure, and now it seems like we are going to be looking at a live-action Nymeria and the 10,000 Ships, which is big news, that I really did not consider that. And so in live action, we'd be seeing the Rhoynar, we'd be seeing them fighting Valyria in its prime, 600 years before the Doom. And then we'd see them traveling around to the jungles of Sothorios, which are filled with actual dinosaurs. They visit Nath Island. And the Summer Isles! Like, if this is a multi-season show, I hope it's not a one-season, one-shot project. If it's a multi-season show, they spend a lot of time in the Summer Islands in a later season, before they even arrive in Dorne, which is at the end of their journey, and then when they get there, they fight various wars to secure it. Again, the structure is like the Aeneid. So this is actually pretty exciting. It looks like this is a live-action thing, and it's moving to the point they're developing an actual script. Well, if this isn't the animated project, what could that be? I'm not really sure, but my hope is that it's simply a bigger, better budgeted version of the Histories and Lore animated videos that they put out with the Blu-rays. People love those things. I love those things. Where it's the main cast providing narration in character over background info from the books. Those things are great, and I really like them, but they're basically very well done motion comics. They're not really full animation. So just imagine if they did what they have been doing with Histories and Lore, but with high-budget, fluid animation on par with other projects like Castlevania, or Invincible, it's a great show, or Blood of Zeus, and put it out as a tie-in for House of the Dragon Season 1, which is covering the Rogue Prince era right before the dance starts. So whatever Histories and Lore we get for Season 1 of House of the Dragon, whether it's a motion comic or a high-budget animation thing, I'm pretty sure the next set of Histories and Lore to set up Season 1 would be telling a lot of stuff from the new chapters we got in Fire and Blood on that long reign of Jaehaerys and Alysanne. That Martin had skipped over that in his previous histories, but enough people asked, can you bridge the gap? It was this big 50-year period. So he invented all sorts of other things that happened. There's this big plague that happens, the shivers, stuff with his children. So we get like an hour of content in any given year for Histories and Lore. Imagine they made like a 10-minute special on the Shivers Plague, because we just had a pandemic ourselves, or stuff they were doing with Dorne and fighting pirates and just other stuff from those Jaehaerys and Alysanne chapters, but in really good animation like Castlevania or Invincible. If for like a 1-hour thing, it is a mini movie, that would be really useful and fun, and everyone could enjoy it, from people just wanting to see good animation to this really does set up the story of what's happening in House of the Dragon. So my current suspicion is the animated project is an improved Histories and Lore, but for all I know, they might be wanting to make an animated Blackfire Rebellion thing, or an animated Young Tywin. Basically, that could happen. It was an extension of the Histories and Lore. They had a supersized Histories and Lore on Tywin and the Rain Rebellion, which was a full 5 minutes. Normally they're 2 minutes. And you can see they were testing the waters for maybe this should be a prequel. Or they made a 40-minute thing about the Targaryen Conquest, or a 20-minute one on the Dance of the Dragons. Just rounding that out into other stories. I'm not really sure what the animated project could be. I'm hoping it's just an expanded histories and lore, which would itself serve as a testing ground for if one of the cartoons does really well, it's seeding the ground for maybe we should make a live-action show about that. Whatever the case, the point is, I no longer think Nymeria is going to be animation. It looks like we're getting a live-action project out of this. So as a quick summary, what are the current active prequel pitches? Not every prequel they could do or have pitched, but the things they are considering now. Things they haven't explicitly canceled. Well, first we're getting House of the Dragon, which has been greenlit for a full 10-episode first season and started actively filming the last week of April 2021, and is expected to premiere in spring of 2022. Story of the Dance of the Dragons. We are definitely getting that. That's what we're getting in 2022. Other things that are in the pitch phase now as live-action TV show projects, things under consideration, are 9 Voyages of Young Corlys Velaryon, where he goes to Yi and all these other interesting places like China. Flea Bottom, which is possibly another tie-in with House of the Dragon. Maybe it's young Daemon, young Mysaria or something. Nymeria and the 10,000 Ships of the Rhoynar, and Tales of Dunk and Egg, which, given their format, they're long novellas with time skips between them, maybe Dunk and Egg wouldn't be an episodic TV show, but a series of annual TV movies. Like every year we get like a 3-hour thing on The Hedge Knight, that's the first novella, or a 3-hour thing on The Mystery Knight, the second Blackfire Rebellion. High budget. It doesn't need dragons and stuff. It's one of the selling points is it's relatively easy to make, but at really good budget for just good costumes and good stuff at a tournament. The tournament's actually hard to put together. Like in season 1 of Game of Thrones, they said it's really hard with the horses and all the elaborate costuming. Just a well-budgeted tournament for a 2-hour movie or something. That'll be really good, and focusing on it as a character piece. But still, live-action film project. They might even give it a limited theatrical run. It's episodic like that. Dunk and Egg is well fitted to the format of one TV movie per novella. Maybe give it a limited theatrical run. Not currently under consideration, unfortunately, but not formally canceled, is the Doom of Valyria prequel. It's on hold, the one that Max Borenstein wanted to make, and recently he said he still wants to make it. He hopes the leadership changes at Warner Media mean they reconsider it, now that they're considering all these other prequels. I'm going to make a separate video about that. And in other formats besides live-action film TV, we have a confirmed Broadway stage play about the tourney at Harrenhal, the opening event of Robert's Rebellion, which promises major plot revelations that we never heard about, and an animated project, which, as I said, I'm hoping is like a higher budgeted version of the histories and lore, because those cover all sorts of things. So, counting up active things, we have 1 major prequel filming now, due to air spring 2022, 4, possibly 5 other live-action TV show pitches, none of which have been greenlit, and which might not be at all. They might pass on all of them for all we know. But 4 or 5 things in consideration, 5 if you include Doom of Valyria, 1 animated project of some sort, and 1 confirmed Broadway stage play. I'm going to keep up with all the announcements about this, so please subscribe if you want to hear more announcements about this. Not a lot of channels are covering all this information, and some of them are still reporting on pitches that we know were canceled a year ago. So please check back. We're getting a lot of news. Even now, why am I making this video so late? We are playing catch-up because so much news is coming out so fast on a daily basis. Keep coming back to stay informed on everything.